What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to Probability. We have UFC Vegas 52 this week. Really looking forward to it. If you like violence, you are most definitely going to like this card. Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to this card?
I'm definitely looking forward to the card, man. There's a lot of good spots on this card. And, when we have all these statistics and we've got all these analytics and we've got the lines to compare them to, we're going to find some spots to like in the over-unders and in the fight goes and fight doesn't goes after this show. So, this one's going to even open some more doors for us to stack those cash tickets like flapjack. So, yeah, I'm liking this card. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking to make some money.
Let's do it. Yeah, I have a ton of bets on this card, and mostly all of them are violence bets, and there's even some spots that are still sticking out. So I'm hoping some things line up, and hopefully some things stick out as well. As always, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe here to the MMA Engine. I think we're like 8 subs away from 600, so thank you guys so much for that. That'd be really cool to hit that by this weekend. As always, we're in the process of working on the graphics, making them more presentable, but Weezy is going to do his best to zoom in there. Let us shout out the chat real quick before we get started, and then we'll get into it. We got Mushroom, the first one in the chat. We got Brandon in the chat as well. We got Lou in the chat. We have Milan, hopefully pronouncing that right. Oxygen in the chat. Papa Chuck. We have Snap It MMA. We got Rob. We got Thomas wanting some violence. We are going to give you some violence. We got VS in the chat. Eagles in the chat. Ross in the chat. And Philip in the chat as well. What is up, guys? If you all can hit the like button, that would be much, much appreciated as always. But Weezy, I say we dive right into it. We have 12 fights. We've had some fights added. We just had a fight fall off in the Manel Kape Mudaerji, but 12 fights, and it's maybe not the best in name value, but like I said, I think we're going to get some violence here. We're going to start with the very first fight of the night, and we have Dean Barry going against Mike Jackson, and we have the fight goes to decision is sitting at plus 220. The fight doesn't go to decision is sitting at minus 280. The over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 is minus 109. The under 1.5 is minus 121, and then these lines are from Bet Online. So, Weezy, what's sticking out to you in the very first fight of the night here?
So the first thing we're just going to look at is this is a 170-pound fight, and going back to 2013, according to your Uncle Weezy's analytics, we got 170-pound fights finishing inside the distance at 48.43% of the time, 308 out of 636 fights. So that's an important benchmark for us to have. In addition to that, the fight doesn't go to decision is priced at minus 280. So that's a 73.68% implied probability. Now, with these two particular fighters, you got Mike Jackson, who's got 2 UFC fights, and Dean Barry, who's got none. So we have no sample size really for the UFC stats. So we're going to go right here to the overall finish rates, which we see right here. And Dean Barry has finished all 4 of his wins inside the distance. Mike Jackson's not listed with a win here, but I didn't realize that his win was taken away from marijuana. So he actually does have a win. He's 1-0, but he did not finish his win inside the distance. And we see that Barry has been finished inside the distance in his only loss, and so has Jackson. So both of these guys' losses have come inside the distance. 4 of 5 wins have come inside the distance. So we've got 6 of 7 of these combined fights, wins and losses for these guys. And that it's scary, you guys. There's only 7 combined professional fights between these two guys. And this is a UFC fight. So we have to keep that in mind when we're gambling on this. This is very low level for the UFC. But in those 7 combined fights, 6 finishes. That's 85% of the time, Brady. That is 37.3% better than the finish rate of 48.43% in the division. And we're still, even at minus 280, getting an implied probability bump of 12% because these guys are finishing at 85.7% in their wins and losses. And the implied probability of the line is only 73%. So we're actually getting a 12% bump on the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 280. Guess what? This template's telling us to bet that.
That's very, very interesting. I do want to bet on this fight, but like you mentioned, Weezy, like how sketchy is this fight is the only thing. Like this fight is probably one of the lowest level fights we're going to see all year. I can't think of a lower level fight, but yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the fight doesn't go. We see that it is at minus 280. That is on Bet Online, minus 260 on 5 Dimes, minus 280 as well on DraftKings. FanDuel still doesn't have the props out, but I was really tempted on that under 1.5 rounds. Looks like the best price you can get out there right now is minus 115. Bet Online does have minus 121 because I kind of think Jackson just comes in here and finishes Barry early on. Or Barry comes in here and
let's say that
Jackson
correctly.
Yeah. No, Jackson's not finishing Barry. I'd be
I
shocked.
know.
But Barry, 4 wins, all of them coming in under 1.5 rounds. I think 3 in the first round. 1 was early second round. If Barry does not finish Jackson early, I'd be kind of surprised here. So I do like the fight doesn't go, but I kind of like the under 1.5 as well at only like minus 121. Any thoughts about that?
Okay, so right here, I've got the statistics. Since 2013, 33.18% of 170 pounds have went under 1.5. So, you should be getting plus money when you're betting an under 1.5 in the 170 pound division. But we have to remember that Dean Barry is a killer be killed fighter. All 5 of his professional fights have finished inside the distance. And Mike Jackson really isn't a fighter at all. He's got 2 professional fights. One of them was against an entertainer. The other one, he was just brought in to get his ass shaved by Mickey Gall. So, this is one where we don't mind paying a lot better rate than what the benchmark is telling us, because this really isn't a UFC fight. These guys aren't UFC caliber yet. And, Mike Jackson, if he gets kicked in the face a couple of times, he might just decide, I'm just taking this show check and going home. So it's a 33% implied probability, or 33% rate that these fights go under 1.5, but at 52.38% implied probability at minus 110, we're overpaying by 19%. But you got to believe that this goes under 1.5 at least half the time, right? I mean, this isn't really even a high level fight.
It's about as low level as you can get. But yeah, I'm kind of like the under. I was looking at the fight won't start round 3, but it's not great. It's like minus 175. But I think there is more than likely violence in this fight. We'll move on to the next fight, and we have Marcin Prachnio going against Philippe Lins. We have the over under is set at 1.5 rounds on most books. Some books do have 2.5, but 1.5. The over 1.5 is minus 155. The under 1.5 is plus 125. The fight goes to decision is plus 170, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 210. And again, this is on Bet Online. Weezy, what's sticking out here?
Okay, so let me change those lines. You said you got the fight doesn't go at minus 210 right now on Bet Online?
The fight doesn't go for Prachnio Lins is minus 210. Yep.
Yes, sir. All right, so minus 210, and the fight goes is what?
Plus 170.
170. Okay, so yeah, and that likes it even more now. All right, so this was a fight that jumped out on the page for me, right? And here's the reason. I love when we've got a good sample size of losses, and in those losses, we see a lot of inside the distance, because everybody at the 205-pound weight class in the UFC has finishing power. Even Devin Clark has finishing power at 205 pounds, or at heavyweight even, which was where he fought his last fight. So when you see losses inside the distance, it's a good thing, And the first thing that we're going to look at here is Prachnio has finished 12 of his 15 wins inside the distance, and Lins has finished 12 of his 14 wins inside the distance. So the combined rate of these guys, 82.8%. That's fantastic. But then we've got an 80% inside the distance when we sum up their losses, Brady. They've both been finished in 4 out of their 5 losses. So when we add up the wins and the losses, 32 of 39 coming inside the distance, that's 82% of the time. The implied probability of this line right now is sitting at 67%. So that is a 14.3% advantage over the books. We got a 12% advantage in the previous fight. This one's even better. So 14.3% for the fight doesn't go to decision for Prachnio Lins here. And even when we look at the UFC stats, Brady, 7 combined fights for these two guys. 71% of them have finished inside the distance. So that gives us a 3.7% edge over the implied probability and a 14% edge over the divisional finish rate, which is 57.39%. So overall, we like it. But even in the UFC, in 5 combined losses, we still have that 80% finish rate against. So in the losses, we're getting 12.3% bump over what the books are pricing this line at, and a 22% bump over how often these guys get finished on the aggregate. So the template loves this one, dude. It absolutely loves it. It tells us we're getting a 14.3% edge on the overall stats, edge over a minus 210 fight doesn't go to decision line. And we're even getting a 3.7% edge when we just look at the UFC finish stats. In addition to that, Brady, Felipe Lin's making the cut down to 205 pounds for the first time in years. So, and we know when you remove fluid from your body, you have less conditioning on fight day, and you have less of an ability to take a punch. So, the prop template fucking loves it, dude. It loves this under.
Yeah, I love it as well. So minus 210, fight doesn't go. That is on Bet Online. Listen to what Five Dimes has, minus 185. Fight doesn't go to decision.
See, like now, if we change that in the template and we just change it to minus 185, right?
It's gonna go crazy.
So that takes us from a 67% implied probability down to a 64.9% implied probability. And now it even likes it better. You know, we're looking at a 17% edge here over the 32 out of 39 combined fights that have finished inside the distance. And we've got a 6.5% edge here over the 5 of 7 that have finished inside the distance for these two guys combined. Even better, minus 185. Even at minus 210, we like it.
Yeah.
But from minus 185 to minus 210, we like this line. And, you know, what we need to start doing here on probability is, because we got people watching us, because we're all trying to stack cash tickets like flapjacks, we need to start writing down these fights that we feel the template is giving us a little bit of an advantage on. And maybe we put together a parlay at the end of the show, Brady. The probability parlay that'll be just having these bookies shitting their pants, trying to shut us down, dude. You know, they're going to be shaking, man. They are absolutely going to be terrified of this show, baby.
We'll call it the PP.
I love it. The PP, baby.
Parlay.
Probability parlay.
Triple
P or quadruple P or just PP.
Probability parlay. There we go. Brandon in the chat saying I'm writing them down. Yeah, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm writing them down. And that is something I'm going to be on Weezy, whether it is the minus 210, but I do see the under 2.5 rounds on DraftKings is minus 165. And then on Bovada, under 2.5 is minus 155. I really like that.
Yeah, that's really fantastic, because the under 2.5 just for this division, you guys, hits 55% of the time, and you're only paying up, 3% over that implied probability for two guys that finish inside the distance 82% of the time on the aggregate. So the under 2.5, the fight doesn't go to decision. Those are both blessed by your Uncle Weezy's prop template.
I like it. Let us keep moving on. We have the next fight on the card, and it is going to be Aoriqileng going against Cameron Else. We see that let me pull it up here, the right one here.
We've got Parsons Elder, according to UFC stats, is next. Did you have a different order that you wanted to go through?
Let me see. Okay, I found it. Okay, we'll do Parsons Elder. I had the thing messed up. All right, Parsons Elder here. We see that the over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 is minus 165, and the under 1.5 rounds is plus 135. The fight goes to decision, plus 160, and then the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 195. So these are actually on 5 dimes. Bet Online does not have the props out for the fight goes or doesn't go. So the only book that does have out the fight goes or doesn't go is going to be 5 dimes. And again, the fight doesn't go is minus 195. So what do you think about this one, Weezy?
Okay, so template loving violence once again. We have something that we absolutely love to see, Brady, when we're betting unders. What is the best thing to see when we're betting unders, in your opinion?
Quitting gassers.
Yeah, that's a great thing. How about a killer be killed fighter? How about a guy who just absolutely kicks the shit out of somebody when he wins, and when he loses, he's out of there well before the bell? Well, we got that with Preston Parsons. 12 professional fights, 9 wins, all inside the distance. 3 losses, all inside the distance. Now, we're going to see some lines that are sitting at minus 400 for fight doesn't go here. But yet, for some reason, we're getting minus 195 here on 5 dimes for a killer be killed fighter who's fighting a guy who's taking a fight on 3 days notice and having to weigh in at 171 pounds on 2 days notice. These are the kind of situations that the analytics don't even tell us how good of a spot it is. Okay. So 9 of 9 wins inside the distance for Parsons, 5 of 7 for Elder. That's 14 of 16 with an 87.5% winning percentage inside the distance for these guys combined. 3 of 3 losses, all coming inside the distance. That comes out to 17 of 19 fights finishing inside the distance in their combined wins and losses. That's damn near 90%. That's 41% better than the divisional finish rate. And Brady, it's 23.4% edge over the implied probability of the line sitting at minus 195. I almost feel like we'd be stealing money by betting the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 195 for Parsons Elder. I love the Barry Jackson violence. I love the Felipe Lins Marcin Prachnio violence. And this one is even better than the first 2, which were both incredible.
I like it. That's incredible. I just wish, Bet Online would have the line out. But yeah, minus 195. I don't know if we'll get that line. But
I
if
don't
we
think
do,
we will.
Yeah, we will. If we do, we got to take a hard look at it. Like even the under 1.5, I was taking a look at. Under 1.5 on Bet Online is plus 135 because Parsons, I think he's been over 1.5 rounds maybe once, but I know for a fact that Parsons has never seen the 3rd round.
Well, let's have a look because that's very important. Because if we can actually find something where we know Parsons has never been past 7.5 minutes, then that is even a better bet because he's been under that every single time. So we got a 255 of round 2. So he's been over 1.5 rounds once, twice.
Yeah. But he's never been to the 3rd round.
He's never even seen the 3rd round, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
So this guy is absolutely a killer be killed fighter. And then look at the names too. Mike Perry, Ignacio Bahamondes, Valdir Araujo. These are some really good names to be fighting on the regional scene here. Even a win over Socrates Pierre, 10-4. Jeff Peterson, 10-7. And then he comes in and he fights Daniel Rodriguez and gets knocked out in the first round. So it's a great fight to bet violence here. And I mean, the prop template absolutely loves it here on the aggregate numbers at a 23.4% edge.
Sounds good. Yeah. Hopefully we get that minus 195. If we do, I'll be hopping on that. But I don't know. The books have been taking their time this week, so I'll have to see. But yeah, minus 195 is the only line we have out. And then they have the under 2.5 on 5 dimes as well, minus 150. Like I wouldn't hate the under 2.5 because, like we talked about, Parsons has never seen that 3rd round. So the under 2.5 alternative could be something else to look at.
Yeah, I like that. That's quite a bit, man. That's a really good line because under 2.5 is 44% of the time anyway. So I think if I'm not mistaken, that is something in the neighborhood of like plus 140-ish, somewhere around there. So and the line is what?
The under 2.5 right now is minus 150.
Yeah, see, that's not bad. You don't mind paying a little bit more than what the benchmark is for this particular fight, where you've got a guy coming in on 3 days' notice, cutting a ton of weight, making his debut against the guy who's never seen a 3rd round in 10 or 12 professional fights. It's another great spot. The under 1.5, the under 2.5, the fight doesn't go. These are all fantastic bettable lines where there's still value.
They all get the Uncle Weezy stamp of approval. Stamp it. Let's go.
Hell
all
yeah.
right. Let us keep moving on. There's a lot of violence on these prelims. We have the next fight. We have Aoriqileng going against Cameron Else. We have the over-under set at 1.5 rounds on most books. We have the over 1.5, minus 150. Under 1.5 is plus 120. The fight goes to decision, plus 150. And then the fight doesn't go to decision, is sitting at minus 185. This is on Bet Online. Weezy, anything sticking out to you in this one here?
Okay, so first thing that we have to talk about is the the percentage of the finish rate for 135-pound men. It's 49.43%. So we got to keep that benchmark in mind. We're paying a 64% implied probability that this fight isn't going to go to decision. So we're paying about 15.5% better, or I mean, not better, but 15.5% more than what the benchmarks are telling us. However, we've got something that we like when we want violence, Brady, don't we? We got Cameron Else with 10 of 10 wins coming inside the distance, and Cameron Else with 4 of 5 losses coming inside the distance. The one fight that did go the distance, Cameron Else was dead 6 minutes into that fight. It was just that his opponent wasn't good enough to finish him. If he gasses out like that against Quileng, he's going to get buried underneath the canvas. So this is a killer be killed fighter. We have that now. And even then, the problem, you guys, is that Quileng's not much of a finisher. He's only finished 7 of 18 wins inside the distance. That's 38.9%. But he has been finished in 3 of his 8 losses inside the distance. And Cam Else has been finished in 4 of 5 losses. So we've got a nice 54% of these guys' combined losses out of 13 fights have been inside the distance. But we still see that we're overpaying at this current line. Now, Brady, you and I got in earlier in the week at like minus 170, right? Or where was it?
Minus 175, I believe.
Minus 175. So we got in a little bit better at like 63.64%. But that even shows that we're overpaying by a 0.5% implied probability. But it's really minus 185, right?
Yep.
So we're overpaying by 6.4%, but we're getting a killer be killed fighter. So we don't mind overpaying in those situations. These killer be killed fighters very, very rarely go to decision. So I would bless the under in this fight. Unfortunately, we just don't have much in the sample size here. Only one of these guys' 3 fights has finished inside the distance at the UFC level. And of course, it was Cameron Else that did, but Quileng, both of his fights went to decision. So this one, I like it for fight doesn't go to decision. The prop template is telling us that we're overpaying by 6.4% over the implied probability of the line. However, I think if we were to go and do the data science and say, hey, let's find fighters where they've got more than 8 fights, and let's just say all 8 of them or 100% of them finish inside the distance. I'll bet if we did the data science for those fights, that those fights are finishing at a huge percentage better than what the benchmarks are and even what the lines will usually give you. So I think that this is a bettable line for fight doesn't go to decision. And we can kind of evidence that by, if you're saying you want to bet the fight goes because you think you're overpaying by 6.4%, now at where the fight goes to decision line is here, we're still only getting 1.5% value. So you want more value than that if you're betting fight goes, because you got one guy in here who's never really even seen a third round except for in one fight. So this is telling us, because we're not getting massive value on the fight goes, that we got to pick the fight doesn't go here. But it's not screaming it like it was in the first 3 fights.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from an analysis standpoint, I think these guys are going to go to war. And then on top of that, we have seen Else gas out like really early in fights, like early second round. And then we have seen him quit as well before. But yeah, I do like that as well for fight doesn't go. So lots of violence on this on these prelims for sure. We'll keep moving on to another fight that I'd be shocked if this one did not scream violence. Weezy, we have Tyson Pedro going against Ike Villanueva. We have the over-under set at 1.5 rounds, the over 1.5 plus 150. The under 1.5 is minus 180. The fight goes to decision plus 300, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 400. And the minus 400 is actually the best out there. On DraftKings, you see minus 650, and I believe it's Caesars has minus 600. And I think that is because on BetOnline, they do not allow you to parlay these props. So that's probably why you're seeing it at minus 400 there. But yeah, best price out there is BetOnline right now, Weezy.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because you'd love to parlay this. This is probably one of the more parlayable ones that we have so far. Pedro and Villanueva's combined career wins, 88% of them come inside the distance in a 25-win sample size. And in the losses, 14 of 16 losses between these two guys coming inside the distance. That's 87.5%. 41 fight sample size, 87.8 finish inside the distance, 30% better than the divisional finish rate, and still 7.8% better than this minus 400 line that we're getting. But let me remind you, the difference in implied probability between minus 400 and where do we have it right now on DraftKings?
On DraftKings, it is sitting at minus 650.
Okay. It's only 6.7% difference in implied probability. We're actually even at minus 650.
Wow.
The prop template is telling us we're getting a 1.1% edge over the book when we look at those 36 of 41 combined fights as a pros finishing inside the distance, almost 88%. So both of these guys in a huge sample size are just never seeing the bell 5 times out of 41. And even in their UFC fights, Brady, look at this. It's even better. Wow. 10 of 11 of their combined UFC fights have finished inside the distance. That's 90.9% of the time. Even at this absurd minus 650 fight doesn't go to decision line, the template is still telling us that you can bet this. You can parlay this because, it would be, there's one time in 11 combined fights that these guys have seen the scorecards. One. So even at this price, it's absurd. But at minus 400 on Bet Online, it's got value.
Like you could even maybe bet that straight 4 units to win one and feel pretty good about it, right?
Yeah. You don't want to do that kind of shit very often, because, you do need to be right, 8, 9 out of 10 times when you hit these bets. But can you imagine what a third round would look like between Tyson Pedro and Ike Villanueva?
No.
They might have to change the canvas because of the amount of blood that would be on it if those guys went more than 10 minutes in this cage. So we got another one here that we can just parlay up, it looks like. But unfortunately, we can't parlay it at minus 400 because Bet Online's a bunch of bustas.
bunch of what?
Bustas.
What's that?
It's just they're just kind of they're not letting us have fun here. Let us have fun. Let us parlay these props, man.
Yeah, luckily Bovada does, and they had it at minus 450, so I did parlay that with something else on the card. So
nice. Well, the prop template, is just absolutely blessing violence all over the place this week.
Yep, I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, like you said, I can't imagine what a third round feels like in this fight. I really can't imagine a second round, to be honest. So I do like violence in this fight quite a bit. We'll move on to another fight, and let's see if the violent streak continues or maybe it ends here because we had 4 or 5 in a row. We have Dwight Grant going against Sergey Khandozhko. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Khandozhko. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 170. The under 2.5 is plus 140. The fight goes to decision minus 155, and the fight doesn't go to decision is plus 125, and that is the best price across all the books on BetOnline.
Okay, so between Grant and Khandozhko, we've got 9 UFC fights. 3 of 9 of them have finished inside the distance. It's telling us based on what Khandozhko and Grant have thus far done in the UFC. It's telling us that it's probably going to the fight goes to decision here, where it's showing us that we have a 5.9% edge over the book by 6 of 9 of these guys combined UFC fights. Seeing the scorecards, that's 15% better than the 51% divisional finish rate and 6% better than the implied probability of the line. But when we kind of go over here to the overall, we see that when these guys are outside the UFC, they're finishing at a better rate. 7 of 11 for Grant, 17 of 26 for Khandozhko. That's 24 of 37 wins coming inside the distance. That's 65%. So that's 20% better than the implied probability of the line. 4 of these guys, 10 combined losses have been inside the distance. So when we add that up, it's 28 of 48 58.3% finish rate. It's 10% better than 48.43 and 13.9% better than the implied probability of the line. Now, I would have to bless the over here because we do have a decent sample size of 9 fights, and these guys are going to decision 15% more than the aggregate of the weight class, and we're seeing a 6% bump over that line that we're currently getting for the fight doesn't go. So, and especially since we haven't seen Khandozhko for a while, maybe it might take him a little bit longer to work his way into this fight. And Dwight Grant is a very odd opponent to try to prepare for. Nobody really strikes like Dwight Grant. So, I think that we got to look at this one as a fight goes.
Yep, I agree. And I was kind of looking at the fight goes to decision. I guess the only thing that scared me off is Grant does have some power, but yeah, I think I'm just gonna stay away. Like, this is probably my least favorite fight on the entire card, and I was I was kind of hoping it would be this one that fell off rather than the Kape Mudaerji fight, but we will still have to watch this. It looks like the fight goes to decision -155. Best price on the fight goes to decision is on DraftKings, and that is sitting at -150.
-150. Yeah. So at -150, we're looking at a 60% implied probability or just about thereabouts. So yeah, 6% better than the line, 15% better than the finish rate. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a fight goes for Khandozhko Grant.
Yep, and Eagles saying that FanDuel has the fight goes to decision at -134.
That's even better. So let's look at that. Let's look at that for the implied probability. -134. That bumps the implied probability down to 57%. And now we like that bet better at 9.4%. So that at that price, we probably even got to bet that.
Yep, that sounds good to me. Let's see the next fight on the card. We have probably one of my favorite fights. We have Jourdain Wright going against Marc-Andre Barriault. We see that the over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5, -150. The under 1.5 is +120. The fight goes to decision is +190. The fight doesn't go to decision is -240 on BetOnline, and that is actually the worst price out there by far. We have -195 on 5 dimes, -200 on DraftKings, and I even saw, I think it was my bookie who had like -180, -170. Fight doesn't go, so it's BetOnline that is putting out the worst price here.
Okay, so what do you got for the best fight doesn't go?
The best one out there is the -188 on Betway.
-188, and then what's the best fight goes?
The best fight goes is +190 on BetOnline.
Oh wow! So that's a cross. Like that's arbitrage there actually. So give me the second best.
Second best fight goes is +160 on 5 dimes.
All right, 160. Okay, cool. So, no surprise here. We've got another killer be killed fighter, you guys. Jourdain Wright. 15 out of 15 fights have finished inside the distance. 3 losses, 12 wins. As a matter of fact, the guy's never even seen a third round. So even if the template's telling us that we're overpaying by 5 to 10%, chances are we're still underpaying. However, for some reason, they're letting us have this. 25 of 34 of these guys' combined fights have finished inside the distance. That's 73.5%, Brady. That's 18.5% better than the 55% finish rate that we get at 185. And 8.3% better than the implied probability of the line. When we go, because we've got a decent sample size of 12 fights here, we're overpaying by about 6.9% here. But we've got a guy in the UFC that's never been past the 6-minute mark, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So that's, he's never been more than 40% of the way into a UFC fight. And we know that the type of fighter that Barriault is. If you don't really get him out of there in the first, you're in trouble because he's going to be turning up the volume in the second, and then further up in the third, he's going to be marching you down. He's going to use his cardio as a weapon. And Jourdain Wright does not like being hit at all. So even if we're overpaying by 7%, I still think that we have to make this bet because these guys are finishing at 3.2% better than the divisional finish rate of 55% on the aggregate. And we've got a killer be killed fighter who's had 5 UFC fights, and none of them have even come close to seeing the scorecards. So this is an auto bet. If we can get it at minus 190, even at minus 200, this is parlayable and it's bettable. And I think we have to make that bet. You don't pass up fight doesn't go to decision bets when you have killer be killed fighters with more than 10 professional fights on their resume. It's just bad business.
Yeah, this usually doesn't happen. I've had like multiple people hit me up and say, like, what's going on with this line? Like, have they never watched Jourdain Wright fight? Like, watch him fight one time. Like, you mentioned it, 15 fights for Jourdain Wright if you want to include the fluffy fight. The dude's never been over 1.5 rounds. He's been to the second round twice. He's 1-1 in those fights. Yeah, I think somebody gets knocked out and probably in the first round. So what I did was I did bet the fight doesn't go, and then I also put a unit on the fight ends in a KO at minus 115. I really like that line on DraftKings.
You got to love that line. I mean, Jourdain Wright has a good number of submissions on his record, but like the guys that he submitted are like 0 wins, 15 losses. Like that's the kind of caliber of opponent that he's submitting. You know, this Marc-Andre Barriault is not on those guys' levels. So if you got to believe if this fight does end, it's going to end via KO. I mean, you could always have the club and sub. These things happen, but at fight ends by KO and you're paying less than 50% implied probability for a fight that should finish inside the distance 9 out of 10 times. I think that's an auto bet without question. But Brandon said in the chat that it's moved to minus 125.
Okay. Yep. I got it.
Still at that price, dude, it's sick. It's so bettable.
Oh yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. So really invested in this fight. I hope it does finish, and I think it's probably a good parlay piece for our PP at the
Absolutely, man. I'm writing it down here, dude. I've got a lot of great bets here, but we're gonna overpay a little bit on Alexandr else and Wright Barriault, but we've got 2 killer be killed fighters in those situations, so we don't mind overpaying.
Yep, for sure. All right. So let us move on to the next fight. We have Charles Jourdain going against Lando Vannata, and this is probably one of the highest level fights on a very low level card, but we have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 175. Under 2.5 rounds is plus 145. The fight goes to decision, minus 150. The fight doesn't go to decision, is plus 120. And this one's very interesting because both these guys are very good finishers, but both these guys are very, very durable. So kind of an interesting one to break down here, Weezy.
Yeah, absolutely. See, we see this big green block right here, and then we move over here and we see this big red block. Now, what that tells us is that these guys win inside the distance all the time. But then when we look at the losses, they're notoriously hard to finish. In 9 combined losses between these two guys, only 2 of them have finished inside the distance. So, these are 2 very durable guys. But when we add up the numbers here on the overall finish rates, and we're going to look at the UFC finish rates for these 2 guys because we absolutely have some really nice numbers there. But 22 out of 36 fights finish inside the distance, 61.1%. That's 18% better than the divisional finish rate and 15.7% better than the implied probability. This is for the fight doesn't go to decision. And then we look over here, and we see that we're overpaying. Now, we've got an 18-fight sample size. For the top row is Vannata. So for Vannata, in the wins and losses, his fights have finished inside the distance in the UFC only 3 out of 11 times. And for Jourdain, it's 3 out of 7 times. So that's 6 out of 18. So only 33% of these guys combined wins and losses at the UFC level have finished inside the distance. So that is about 10% worse than the finish rate for the division, which is 43.04%. And it's 12% better, worse than the implied probability of the line, which is 45.45%. But only 6 of 18 or 33% of these guys' fights have finished inside the distance. So we're overpaying there. So what that's telling us is that we got to scroll down now to the fight goes to decision. And when we look at these 9 out of 18 fights have went to decision, but that's actually not right. See, we see the 6 out of 18 up here, and we see the 9 out of 18, but our spreadsheet isn't taking into account the it actually is. It's got the correct decision percentage here because 3 draws between these 2 guys. Vannata's got 2 draws on his record, and the other guys got 1. So it shows 9 out of 18, but it's really 12 out of 18. So 66% of these fights have went to decision. And what that's telling us is that it's given us 6.7% better than the implied probability of the line that it goes to decision, and that these guys' fights are going to decision at the UFC level about 10% more than what the aggregate is. So this is one where the template is telling us that this one is going to go to decision. And if you want to be really cheeky, Jourdain finishes in the 3rd round. So you could actually hedge with Jourdain round 3 if you like that bet, because that guy is a madman in round 3. So if the fight does go to decision, if it does get into the 3rd round, you won't have to worry if Jourdain gets a finish. But I like this one going to decision, Brady.
Yeah, I do too. And by the way, FanDuel finally, what is it, Thursday, 9 o'clock, FanDuel finally got the props out. Thank you, FanDuel. We've been waiting. They have the fight goes to decision -146, which is the best line out there.
So it's what?
-146.
-146 for the fight goes to decision. So we'll get just a little bit better, like 0.65% better. So we're showing a 7.3% edge over the books there. Not bad at all. And Mbaye brought it up in the chat that the losses for Vannata are at 155, which is important. This is only his 2nd fight down at 145. So that's different, but still both of these guys are very durable and not getting finished inside the distance. So 75% of these guys' losses combined have went to decision. You got to like that for a fight goes. So, we're blessing the fight goes here.
The fight goes decision, gets Uncle Weezy's stamp of approval. And I have a feeling, my goodness, the next fight is going to be some violence, and there will be a stamp of approval on that. We have the people's main event. We have Alexandr Romanov going against Chase, the Vanilla Gorilla Sherman, making his return to the UFC. I cannot wait for this fight. I'm looking forward to it. We have, first of all, Romanov's -2,500. Like that's insane. But we're talking some props here, right? We have the over/under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 is +220. The under 1.5 is -280. You'll never see that ever. The over 2.5 rounds +360. Under 2.5 rounds is -450. So the only book that has the fight goes and doesn't go is 5 Dimes, and 5 Dimes has the fight goes to decision +425, and the fight doesn't get the decision is only -610. I was kind of expecting wider, but I'm assuming that's going to get hammered. It looks like some money's coming on that. But yeah, Weezy, probably some violence here.
Yeah, it even went from -600 to -610 just before the show. So it's moving. But yeah, so 63.47% of heavyweight fights that are 3 rounds finish inside the distance since 2013. Both of these guys are finishers. Both of these guys have finished 14 of their 15 wins inside the distance. And then we've got for Sherman, 5 of 9 losses coming inside the distance. That's 85% combined finish rate in 39 fights for these guys in their wins and losses. So we're actually overpaying by 1.1% at where the line is currently. And if we look at the UFC numbers, we've only got 9 of 15 of their combined fights finishing inside the distance. That's only 60%. And we're paying 85%. So we're getting ripped off there. I mean, at this point, you might as well just bet the fight goes, even though it's not, I'm not going to bless that bet, but at least the template is telling us that because 6 of these guys, 15 UFC fights have went to decision, that's 40% rate. And that's actually 20% better than the implied probability of the fight goes, which is only 20%. So, the prop template is telling us, bet the fight goes here because that's where the value is. And it would make sense. These guys know that this fight is finishing inside the distance. So they're going to make you pay the fuck up to make that bet.
Yeah. And then Tim was talking about Romanov in round 1. Romanov in round 1 is like -190. You do not see that often. It's crazy.
Jesus. I mean, yeah, you can't. It's just it's an unbettable fight.
Yeah. I have a bet on it, but yeah, it is.
You have what's your bet?
I parlayed the under 1.5 with the fight doesn't go in the Pedro fight.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it should happen. I mean, under 1.5 for these guys. See, in the heavyweight division, we can see right over here, Brady, under 1.5 actually happens 44% of the time, right? So, I mean, that's 4 out of 9 times. It's almost 50%, it's a good number. So for a fight like this where you've just got a massive mismatch, you don't mind overpaying 15, 20% even, because this thing probably finishes under 1.5 3 out of 4 times, just because we've got guys that when they win fights, they're finishing inside the distance 28 out of 30 times. So, it's definitely a fight that should go under, but what the template is telling us is that there's really no value here. When you have to pay up to minus 600 to cash a bet, you probably need to be finding some value elsewhere, because you could do better than that.
Yeah, 100%. I'm surprised you didn't bring up Jake Collier in the entire breakdown.
Oh man, we've got Fat Collier's coming up next week, my man. So it's Fat Collier fight week next week. I don't want to wear out the jokes. I don't want to wear out the material that I always have for every Jake Collier fight, and we're gonna get to see him next week against the Belarusian, the veteran Andrei Arlovsky. So we'll get to discuss him at length. But yeah, it is one of those things that this is why the line is where it is. When you get taken down and subbed by Fat Collier in round 1, and then have to fight somebody that's a 10 times better wrestler than Collier in your next fight, that's why this line is just completely blown the fuck out. Minus 2,500, Brady. Have you ever seen that? Ever?
No, not even no, not in the UFC.
No. I mean, that's bonkers.
And Bootsy's in Sherman as well.
Yeah, Bootsy listens to a lot of Yanni the Greek, and Yanni would tell you, you can't bet minus 2,500, and he's right, dude. You can't.
Yeah,
you got to be on the other side and just hope for a banana peel, or hope Romanov gets food poisoning and shits himself out there. You shit yourself in the cage, automatic loss. It's over. So, I mean, anything can happen. It's a fucking fight.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be hilarious, so I cannot wait for it. We have the next fight. We have Maycee Barber going against Montana De La Rosa. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 240. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 190. The fight goes to decision is minus 230, and the fight doesn't go to decision is plus 185 on BetOnline. Weezy, anything sticking out here?
Okay, so we got minus 230 now for the fight doesn't go, or for the fight goes?
Yeah, for the fight. I just refreshed it a couple minutes ago.
Okay, and the fight doesn't go is what?
Plus 185.
185. All right, cool. So, oh wow. The template's loving the fight doesn't go here. So we see it 16 of 21 combined wins for De La Rosa and Barber inside the distance as a pro. 2 of 8 losses, though, so we don't like that. Montana's been finished twice. Maycee's never been finished, and Maycee's notoriously tough. So only 2 of 8 losses coming inside the distance, but 18 of 30 finishing. That's 60% on the aggregate. That's about 19% better than the divisional finish rate, and 25% better than the implied probability of the line. Now, unfortunately, we see this number here, this 18.2% that we're getting to bet the fight doesn't go here. The problem is neither of these ladies has ever been finished in the UFC. So if we bet the fight doesn't go, we have to wait for a first. And that's going to be Montana or Barber losing inside the distance at the UFC level. That's never happened so far. So even though it's telling us, according to the UFC numbers, with 8 of 15 of these combined ladies' fights finishing inside the distance, that's 53.3%. That's 12.2% better than the divisional finish rate of 41.1%. And it's 18.2% better than the implied probability of the line, which is 35%. So the bookies are begging us to bet the under here. And the reason they're begging us and they're giving us all that value is because neither of these ladies has been finished. So we see that, for the fight goes to decision here, it hates it. It's telling us that we're overpaying by 23%. But I don't get in the habit of betting fight doesn't go to decision lines when neither lady has been finished or neither man has been finished. So they're trying to give us value on the fight doesn't go, but I don't think it's a good bet, man.
Yeah, I think it does go to decision as well. I'm not going to touch. I don't have a bet on that fight, but I don't know. We see that. Let's see if there's any other lines that do stick out on that. They have the fight doesn't go to decision. The worst line is like plus 134. So the fight goes to decision on FanDuel is minus 210. Does that stick out at all?
Minus 210. That'll be a little bit better. At 67.74%, we're still overpaying by 21% for the fight goes, because only 6 of 15 of these fights have actually went to decision. That's 12% worse than the divisional decision rate, and 21.1% worse than the implied probability of the line. So we're overpaying for that fight goes to decision, but that's the side we want to be on because we've got 2 durable fighters. So the template is telling me to stay away. You got to watch it when you got a big green block here and a big red block there, because it's telling you, oh, they finished their wins, but they're both durable. So, it tells us this is probably a stay away in terms of we'd be looking for some value here in the fight goes, but there is none. There's the opposite of that. Yeah. So we got to stay away from this one.
Makes sense. MMA for pay saying 100 gambler, and I agree. I do agree with that. Tim saying Bootsy's down 54 units. Tim, I don't know about that. Bootsy called Malcolm Gordon a couple months ago. That was a big call from Bootsy. Do not sleep on Bootsy. He does have some big calls, man.
But we got to remember, Bootsy liked Ike Villanueva and Mike Jackson this week. So if he gets that shit right, he is literally going to be co-hosting these videos with Brady, and your Uncle Weezy is going to be out on the street, because nobody's going to listen to me anymore if he hits those bets.
Oh yeah, for sure. We need Bootsy to get his own show. I wonder if anybody would watch Bootsy just barking. If he barks, bet it. If he doesn't bark, pass. So, nobody's doing that. I mean, it could be a show. Why not?
Nobody's doing that, right? And you got to be innovative. Number one, you got to be innovative.
Yep. Mbe saying the fight goes is good. Yeah, I think it does go to decision. Thomas saying Romanov inside the distance is minus 450. Yeah, that he is minus 450. Fight doesn't go or inside the distance, but
crazy.
Yeah,
it's
but
just crazy.
Minus 2,500 is nuts. It's nuts.
Unbelievable.
Like, I don't know. 25. And even like Barry minus 1,500, I thought was nuts.
And that is nuts. It is nuts. But it's just getting to the point now where they're telling you, as a gambler, you almost have to play into this variance. It's getting stupid. Nobody should be minus 2,500 at the UFC level.
Not in a fight. Not in a heavyweight fight.
No, I mean, it's crazy, dude. It's absolutely crazy. I hope Chase comes out there and just knocks him out, because it would just show you that you just can't, you can't bet any line. You have, that's why we build this template is just, because just because you think something's going to happen, it doesn't mean you're not overpaying for it, and like crazy overpaying for it in some instances. And that's why like this template is so important. It can tell us, this is probably going to happen, but come on, you don't have to bet every fight. Just because you think it's going to finish, it doesn't mean you go out and pay minus 750.
Yep, exactly. We got the GOAT in the chat. This show is fire. Keep up the good work. Thank you, GOAT. That does mean a lot coming from you. Mushroom saying the draw. We'll talk about some draws on Best Bet on Saturday. That's for sure. And we almost got a couple the other card as well. So we have 2 fights left. We have the co-main event and the main event. We'll start with the co-main event. We have Clay Guida going against Claudio Puelles. We have the over/under set at 2.5 rounds. Over 2.5, minus 215. Under 2.5, plus 175. The fight goes to decision. Minus 200. The fight doesn't go to decision. Is plus 160. Weezy, anything sticking out here?
Well, let's go right over to the UFC stats here instead of the overall stats, just because we got Clay Guida. He's got 17 wins and 15 losses at the UFC level, so we've got a really nice sample size here. 9 of these guys, 21 wins have come inside the distance. That's 43%. 9 of these guys, 16 losses have come inside the distance. That's 56.3%. Added up, 18 of these guys, 37 fights coming inside the distance. That is 48.6%. That is 1.7% less than the divisional finish rate of 50.37%, but 10% better than the implied probability of the line, which is 38.46%. So we're getting plus 160 for this fight to finish inside the distance. And these guys are finishing inside the distance just under 50% of the time. So that the template's actually telling us with this nice sample size that we have that the value here is going to be on this fight finishing inside the distance, because it's clear that most people are on this fight going to decision. And as you can see here, Guida's been to decision 17 of 32 times. Puelles has been to decision 2 of 5 times. So that's 19 of 37 fights that have went to decision. That's 51%. That's 1.7% better than the divisional decision rate. But look, we're overpaying for this line by 15.3% according to these numbers compared against the implied probability of the fight goes to decision line. So my suggestion would be this is either you take the shot on this fight finishing inside the distance or you stay away, because the value is on the fight doesn't go. But when you look at the fight and you just break it down with tape study and stuff, these guys, Puelles needs to finish on the ground via submission. And he could absolutely do that because Guida's been submitted in about half of his UFC losses. But Guida's a great wrestler. He's going to have a pretty easy time keeping this fight on the feet. And if it stays on the feet, I think we're going to see a boxing match, and it probably does go to decision. So this feels like a stay away for me, Brady. How about for you?
Yep, no interest in it from a prop standpoint or even like a straight betting standpoint. I'm gonna stay away from this one for sure. So we can move on to the main event. We have Jessica Andrade going against Amanda Lemos. Yeah, really curious to hear your thoughts on this one, Weezy. We have the over under is set. If I can find it, the over under is set, I believe, if I could pull it up, and there it is. The over-under is set at 3.5 rounds on some books. 2.5 looks like 2.5 is the most available. Over 2.5 rounds is minus 160. Under 2.5 rounds is plus 130. The fight goes to decision is plus 165, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 205. And this is on Bet Online. And then we'll also talk about the fight doesn't go on 5 dimes is minus 165. That's a big difference.
Okay. So we've got, let's go for the fight doesn't go to decision. Let's go over to the UFC rates for these ladies. So 3 of 5 Lemos fights finishing inside the distance and wins. 7 of 13 for Jessica. So that's 10 of 18, 55.56%. That's 11% worse than the implied probability of the line, but 6 of 8 losses coming inside the distance for these ladies, 75%. So 16 of the 26 combined UFC fights for Lemos and Andrade, they're finishing at a 61.5% rate. That's 31% better than the straw weight rate of 30%. And we're overpaying on this line about 5.7%. But we got to remind ourselves this isn't a 3-round fight. And I'm using 3-round analytics here because I haven't even banked the 5-round analytics yet. So according to this, we're overpaying 5.7, but we're overpaying based on 3-round fights finishing, not 5-round fights finishing. So I would say that the value here is going to be on the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 200, Brady, because 6 of 8 losses you cannot ignore at the UFC level coming inside the distance. And we know that Lemos has got crazy power, and we know that Andrade has got crazy power. Look, 55.6% of their combined wins coming inside the distance when we know that the divisional finish rate for straw rates is 31%. So not only are these ladies finishing way above the rate in their wins, they're finishing at an even further percentage above the rate in their losses. So 16 of 26, 61.5% of their combined fights finishing inside the distance tells us we got to bet the fight doesn't go to decision here.
Yep, and I did, and it's probably my biggest bet of the night. I do believe I have I bet it at like minus 175, I think, and then I added on around like minus 200. But yeah, I would love a 5 dimes account to get that minus 165. That's kind of nuts.
I know, man. There's so many. 5 dimes is the best props for over-unders, and they open them early and they'll take action. That's something that some of these other books are just not willing to do anymore. FanDuel has completely pulled back from taking any kind of action. They're letting the other books take the action, and then they come in late. and DraftKings has always done the same thing. So, it's going to be a race to see who gets these good lines, and you're going to have to find access to some of these books if you want to be serious about betting on these lines, because some of these books are flat out shit in the bed, Brady.
Oh, yeah, for sure, especially this week. But we went through all the fights. I guess we can get straight to the PP and then head out of here. So, Weezy, what do you want to do? 2 legs, 3 legs? What do you want to do? You want to do 3?
The spots that stuck out the most, unfortunately, Parsons Elder isn't even available, is it?
Only on 5 dimes, yeah.
Yeah, so 23.4% edge we're getting above the books on that Parsons Elder line. So we've got to include that.
Okay.
Prachnio Lins, 14.3% edge. That should be in there. And now we might be able to do more than 2 or 3 legs this time, because we've got a couple of juiced up lines here. So I'm thinking we could make this, once the Parsons Elder line comes out, we could do Barry Jackson violence.
Okay.
Prachnio Lins violence.
Okay.
Parsons Elder violence.
All right.
Quileng Else violence.
Okay.
And Villanueva Pedro violence.
Okay.
And then we can add Andrade Lemos if we want.
So those 5 is plus 527. And then adding Andrade Lemos is plus 908 for those 6.
That would be the violence parlay that I would absolutely be 100% in on. I think, Barry Jackson, Prachnio Lins, Parsons Elder, Quileng Else, Villanueva Pedro, and then we can even add Andrade Lemos. A 6-legger giving you plus 800. And we've got killer be killed fighters in 3 of those 6. And in the other 3, we've got a 23.4% edge, a 14.3% edge, and a 12% edge. And we're not even playing over-unders. We're just saying fight doesn't go to decision. So that would be the spot that I think we can cash that one. And if these books start really, falling by the wayside to the probability parlays, or the PP for short, that's when they're going to start coming for us, Brady. We're going to have to start locking our doors when we start doing this show on Thursdays.
I like it. Yeah, plus 908 for that. I do like it. I'll probably be sprinkling that, doing something because there's so much violence on this card. This is probably the most violent card of the year.
It absolutely is.
Although on paper it's like a bunch of low-level fights, but I think it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be a fun card.
I agree, man, and I think we got some really good looks here. The template is picking out some spots for us. And when we do the work, when we put in the research and we do the mathematical calculations, some things are going to stick out for us, Brady. And I think what else is going to be sticking out is our fat pockets after we start cashing all these bets, baby.
I hope. I have a ton of action on this card, and while we were going through, I was actually adding some bets that I'm liking. I'm really liking the Lins Prachnio under 2.5 minus 155. They also dropped the Philippe Lins KO at plus 310 on FanDuel. I like that. I'm going to be on the Barry Jackson under 1.5. And they also dropped the Jourdain Wright wins by first round KO plus 800. I know you got the plus 1,000, but I'm going to take the plus 800 there on FanDuel.
Not bad.
So lots of spots sticking out. So Weezy.
Mushroom's saying to add Romanov. I mean, you could absolutely do that if you want to. It's it's so juiced that I don't think it makes our parlay that much better. But I mean, does that fight go the full 3 rounds? I mean, come on, dude. It would be hilarious. At least you have a story to tell your friends if that was the leg that broke your parlay. I don't think that's going to be the one that does it. So
if you want to add
Mushroom, you can absolutely add it. So
go ahead.
And Tajik Bey does say it's Sherman time, baby, and we know that Tajik gets these right sometimes. Is Chase going to be beating Alexandr Romanov on Saturday, baby, or is he going to shock the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's a heavyweight fight. Like Romanov, what if he comes out there and tests his strike? And like Sherman has power. I mean, anything can happen. Don't lay minus 2,500 on Romanov is all I have to say. But he should win. Yeah, Tajik says Sherman KO, and hey, it can happen. but Weezy, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week.
Yeah, man, you can find me on my channel, Uncle Weezy. I do a full card breakdown every Tuesday night called Just the Tip. I've been slacking in terms of providing other content because it's been weird with Easter this week, and it's just been a long stretch of fights here. So I may go live on my channel at some point tonight for Ask Weezy after 10 o'clock Central Time, but it also might not happen. I've been very busy. But you can find me on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday for Stat Diggers, every Wednesday for the DFS show that we do, and right here on the MMA Engine channel for Probability every damn week. You guys, if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please do so. We're going to be adding new content. We're going to be trying to innovate and give you guys as much quality content for as low of a price as possible. And it's all free on YouTube anyway, so enjoy it, use it. We're going to be trying to take money from these bookies, and we're going to be trying to give you data-driven ways to do so. So MMA Engine, Pub Sports Radio, Uncle Weezy's channel. You can find me anywhere. Thank all of you guys for spending your Thursday evening with us. Can't wait to see you again next week.
Whew, we did it. Thank you all so much for hanging out. We had a good crowd in here, around 60. Seems like the show keeps growing week after week, so people seem to be liking it. We're going to keep doing it, and we're going to keep bringing those PPs as well. So you guys can find me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. I'll be going live tomorrow, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and then live for Best Bet with me, Weezy, Narco, and Eric. That is 1 hour prior to the prelims. That'll be at around like 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. But yeah, best of luck, guys. Lots of violence. If you like violence, this is your card. So I'm going to have a ton of bets. Hopefully it is a violent night. If it is, it's going to be a good night. If not, I'll probably go broke. But I think we're going to get some violence here. Best of luck, guys, and we'll talk to you.